Okay, it is time to get down to the nitty gritty. Time to bust out the big guns, the heavyweights, the home run hitters. And over here, I think I have about 11 CGC slab books. Some of these are books that have been optioned, some of them are books that I'm speculating on, some of them are just good reads, stuff that I fell in love with. I'm going to start off with this book on the top. After I had seen the Marvel What If episode with the Marvel zombies in it, I had to go out there and get everything Marvel zombie related. So I'm pretty sure I almost have it all completed with all the variants. So I've got like Marvel Zombies 2, Marvel Zombies 3, Marvel Zombies meets Army of Darkness. But it all starts with this. And this is the first cameo appearance of the Fantastic Four zombies in the Marvel Universe. It is Ultimate Fantastic Four, issue 21, CGC 9.4 with white pages. Again, I cannot stress how important it is to get comic books, if you can, while you can, in high grade with the white pages. That would always give you the slight advantage over any seller, any competitor with the same book in the same grade if you have those white pages. And if it's for your PC, why not get the white pages? Again, I always try to get books that present higher than they grade. Books that I find aesthetically pleasing with high eye appeal, and again, with no damage to that spine, because anything else can be pressed and cleaned out. And this is a great, beautiful looking book. There's no stress marks on the spine, that's for sure. No tick marks. Nothing that breaks the color on the spine. See like a slight wave in the book. These Ultimate books had really fragile covers, and they always suffered from like a waviness in them. But that is the first cameo appearance of the Fantastic Four zombies in the Marvel Universe. That was part one. Over here is some more Marvel zombies. And this is the first appearance of the Marvel zombies in the Marvel Universe. This is Ultimate Fantastic Four, issue 22, CGC 9.4 with white pages. Again, gotta get those white pages, gotta get those high grades. And I am so happy that I had been able to get issue 21 and issue 22. I'm so glad I was able to secure them both in a 9.4. Again, I made sure to avoid any sort of damage on that spine. And this book for sure should have graded like a 9.6, if not a 9.8. Again, another Marvel Zombie books. This is Ultimate Fantastic Four, issue 23, CGC 9.2. I wish I could have found it in a 9.4 for a good price. But I got a really good deal on this. I think I paid $35 for it, plus some shipping. And this 9.2 was looking and presenting better eye appeal than some of the 9.4s and the 9.6 that were selling on eBay at that time. And again, I don't care what CGC says or grades the book. If I look at the book myself and I personally take a really close, in-depth look at the book, detail for detail, inch by inch on that book, and I can't spot anything wrong with the book personally, I don't care if it's a 9.0, 9.2, or 9.4. I find it aesthetically pleasing and high eye appeal. I'm going to buy that book. The only thing I can find wrong with this book, like I said, I always stay away from damage on the spine. So this book does not suffer from any damage on the spine whatsoever. I'm just glad it also has the white pages and it's a 9.2 to go along and complete that set. That was part 3 to the first appearances of the Fantastic Four zombies and the rest of the Marvel zombies in the Marvel Universe. And of course, next up, no other than Marvel Zombies issue 1, CGC 9.0 white pages. Get those white pages. And right off the back, I want to tell you, I took a close look at this book when I was purchasing it. And I couldn't find anything wrong with this book whatsoever. I even requested like extra pictures. I was looking at it inch by inch. I just could not figure out like what was wrong with this book. And I didn't want to ask the seller what was wrong because he was already giving me such a great deal, and I didn't want him to like take back the deal and like lose it. And I took a quick look at it. I was able to tell like instantly what was up with it. And the staple placement, the staple is not, and I doubt you're gonna be able to see this on camera, it's not all the way like pushed in. So there's like a little gap between the comic book and the staple. There's a little bit of space between the comic and the staple. There's like a little gap on this top staple, between the staple. Like it didn't like really get inserted all the way in. And that's the only thing that I think could have, hurt the grade of this book, because the rest of it presents like the very least a 9.6. Okay, next up is some 80s nostalgia. And this is Macross 1. In the United States, it was known as Robotech. And this is a CGC 9.4 white pages. Again, I'm always hunting for those high grades with the white pages. You gotta look for those. You gotta aim to get those. I can't stress how important that is, to get those white pages. And as a collector, again, why wouldn't you want the white pages? Okay, up next is a perfect example of everything I've been saying throughout this video about trying to get a book with white pages. It is Saga CGC 9.0 white pages. And the reason why I'm stressing the white pages on this book, because of the inside of the book has white pages, it is more than likely that the front and back cover of this book, which is all white, is going to present really white. Because with this book, that's all white, front and back, you want to make sure there's no sort of discoloration, no sort of yellowing from aging. You want this book to be as white as possible. You don't want there to be any staining on the book that's going to stand out real easily on this white front and back cover. And most of all, you want to avoid foxing, because I don't think you could remove foxing, especially from a white cover. And again, this front and back cover is really white, real clean, real sharp. There's no staining. I don't see any sort of shadow dusting, which is dust that sticks onto the front and back cover of your comic book. And then since this is a white cover and a back cover that's white, it would stand out real easily if it had any sort of like shadow dusting. So it doesn't suffer from any sort of shadow dusting from what I see. So the spine is looking clean. I don't see any stress or tick marks or creases. And if this book did have any slight tick marks or impression, it would be really hard to tell because it is a white cover, front and back. So even if this spine had the slightest of impressions or tick marks, it would be hard to see it, and you could probably press it out easily because you're not going to see any sort of breakage of color on the white. So this book looks great, and it definitely presents to me higher than a 9.0. And I'm just so glad to finally get that in my collection and complete the series. And I can't wait to like reread it. And here we go. Silver Surfer, Black, issue 1. This is a variant cover. It's a CGC 9.4 with white pages. And again, I bought it because I got a really good price on it. Struck a deal with someone. I love this series. It was a great little mini series. And the front cover presented really, really well. Like I said, I always take a real close look at these books. I was already aware that it has some sort of problems on the black part, on the back cover of the book along the spine. I was already aware that it had like some sort of bend but nothing that breaks the color and nothing that was like gonna stop me from getting that book at such a good deal. The next book is just like more 80s nostalgia, and I can't get enough of 80s nostalgia. I'm in love with like getting like stuff that reminds me of my childhood, and that is Thundercats issue 1 by Marvel Comics. It is a CGC 9.2 with off-white to white pages. It came out in 1985, and like I said, I love a lot of that stuff from the 80s and 90s. This book is another book that presents really higher than it grades. And I got this book not only because I love the Thundercats and I grew up on Thundercats, and I've just been loving this whole, like, you know, trip down memory lane. Who doesn't love nostalgia? But it was optioned, and I forgot who picked it up, but I heard that it's being turned into a movie, and I've been hearing that for years, but I got it for a really, really good deal. And these books, 9.0 or higher, they're going for about $220 right now on eBay. And I can't remember how much I paid for it, but it wasn't anywhere near $220. The only problem I could see, some sort of ripple or wave on the top edge of the book, but nothing that hurts the cover's eye appeal. And next book is another book that has to do with 80s nostalgia, and it is Transformers issue 1 from 1984, CGC 9.0, white pages. And again, I can't stress how big 80s nostalgia and 90s nostalgia is right now. There's just a lot of people going down memory lane nowadays from what I see, you know, through the sales on eBay. And I got this book for $100, and right now, I will bet you that you cannot find one cheaper than $300 at this grade. I got it for $100, and I was able to talk the guy down because I really wasn't happy. It's got this one slight tick mark on the spine of the book, but it's like dead center in the middle of the book. But again, it's nothing that like you could really see. You have to be like real picky like I am for that to even bother you. But the book still, to me, it should have graded like a 9.4, especially with those white pages. And here's another book. It's Voltron issue 1, first appearance of Voltron in comic book form. It came out in 1985. It's a CGC 9.0, and again with the white pages. Make sure you get that pages, because then it's gonna make sure that like parts of the book, like the front and back cover, where it has a lot of white on it, it kind of ensures that your front and back cover is also going to be white if it does contain white. And as you can see, the white around Voltron, it's really white, really crispy, really sharp on this book. And again, I just love things from my childhood. Nowadays, just can't get enough of it. And again, get the white pages. It's going to ensure that if there's any white on the front and back cover, you're going to have a really good chance that it's also really white and crispy, just the way you want it. This book just looks so nice. It presents like the way it probably did originally when it first came out in 1985. And for this final book, I can't express how much of a heavyweight this book is, how much of a home run hitter this book is. I must have been hunting this book down for like 2 years. When the show was announced and there was so much hype behind it, you couldn't get this book for any less than $700 to $900 in this grade. You couldn't find it in good condition. It was just selling off the shelf. And I had to be really patient with this book. I had to wait a really long time to get it. And that is Why the Last Man, issue 1, signed by your boy, Brian K. Vaughan. It is a CGC 9.6 with white pages. And again, I don't care. I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. I cannot stress enough how important it is to get a book with white pages, because then it's going to ensure something like this. This border over here, edge on the spine of the book, it is white. It's really white. Wonder Bread, white. And the reason for that, more than likely, is because the book was kept in good condition. It has white pages. That's going to lead to something like any sort of white on the front or back cover also being white. And you're going to avoid stuff like the aging of paper. You're going to avoid discoloration, that yellowing. You're going to avoid staining and shadow dusting. Like I said, is that sticky dust that sticks onto your comic book, and if it's a white cover, it's really gonna stick out. You know, and most of all, you avoid foxing. And this book is a 9.6, and there is not a single tick mark of impression or anything that breaks the color on that spine. And it'd be hard to see it anyway because it's got a white border on that spine. Now the back is a solid black. If it did have any sort of damage on the spine or any sort of color breaks or any sort of, tick mark, it would stand out on that black back cover. And there's nothing on it. The only thing I could see that would hurt the grade on this book is a misplaced top staple, which is kind of like on the back cover. But this is signed by your boy, Brian K. Vaughan. And yes, I do know that it has the blue label. I'm not exactly sure why it has the blue label. I'm going to have to do some research into that. I do know that signed books by CGC normally have a yellow label, and I will have to do some research into it. But I did notice that when I was purchasing the book, the guy had an asking price of $429. From $429, I was able to talk him down to $175, free shipping. Now on eBay, you will be hard pressed to find anyone selling this book signed for less than $700. I love anything that Brian K. Vaughan writes. The show Lost, the TV series, it's in my top 3 favorite shows of all time. I love that TV show Lost, and he was a part of that writing crew. I love Saga. That's probably one of my top 5, if not top 3 indie comic books of all time, along with Paper Girl, which is in my top 10 indie comic books of all time. This stack right here is easily worth $2,000. Now, if you thought that was exciting, I've got even more exciting stuff for you. And you're like, CBM, what could be more exciting than that huge stack of slab indie key comics? Normally I don't get too excited about raw books. I usually save that for my key slab books, but I've got some heat. This is straight gas right here. So there's 3 books that I'm about to show you, and they're all on fire. And I'm gonna start off with